Hey everyone, welcome into Attacking Third, presented by PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865. Alongside Darian Jenkins, Christine Cupo, I'm Lisa Carlin. We are rocking kits today. We like to wear them, and we are looking pretty good. Christine, I've never seen this before. Please tell us what you're wearing.
This is actually very, very cool. Not sponsored, but I was fortunate enough to go to an event recently where I was introduced to Design FC, and they offer specialized after-school programs and workshops to help transform the lives of kids in underprivileged communities, where they'll learn storytelling skills and graphic design and things like that. And I was fortunate enough to meet some of the kids that actually reside in Chester, outside of Philly, that designed some of these jerseys that New Balance was kind enough to put out. But they also have some of them featured in EAFC, which is like an option for your team, which is very, very cool, just to show that there are pathways out of what you may think is very limited opportunities from children in these communities.
That is very cool. Absolutely cool. I like that it was children in Chester, too. A little Philly shout out there for sure. You probably can't top that.
Yeah, well, I don't know why you came to me second. I mean, I love the pride. Shout out to my pride girls, but I don't think we can compete with that.
No, it was just so cool, and I hadn't asked her about it yet because I was initiatives. Yeah, it's really cool.
Another one, please.
They had the orange, the citrus initiative.
Oh, and citrus. I match Cupo's nails.
Yeah,
yes, actually, I have pride nails.
Yeah,
come on.
This is good. I planned that.
They're
totally
undefeated.
That was a tough follow. It was a tough follow.
Sorry, gal. I set you up for that one.
Let's go to you. What are you wearing?
I'm wearing Washington Spirit. Shout out to
who's
the
on
Spirit.
The back?
Rodman. She made the roster for the Olympics for the United States, so I had to rock her today.
Good choice.
Thank you. It was a great choice. I like this kit too, the gray color scheme on it.
We need the yellow ones.
Yeah, the yellow ones
I
are
want the yellow
cool.
highlighter ones.
Yeah, the yellow ones are very sick. But I had to rock Rodman today because she made the United States women's national team 18-player roster for the 2024 Paris Olympics. Emma Hayes dropped her 18 players plus 4 alternates yesterday. Let's run through it. There she is, Trinity Rodman, as one of the forwards listed for the United States. There are 5 of them: Crystal Dunn, Trinity Rodman, Jaden Shaw, Sophia Smith, and Mallory Swanson. Lynn Williams is listed as an alternate. And the alternates for this Olympics in 2024 are a little bit different. They can only be used if one of the 18 players is no longer rostered. The biggest name not on this list that everyone is talking about, Alex Morgan. The first time since 2008 that Morgan is not on a international tournament roster. How much of a shock was this, Christine, when you did not see Morgan's name?
I'm going to be honest, in my projections, she wasn't included, and it was just for the purpose of, I just don't see her fitting well with sort of the way that Emma has described the squad that she selected or would be selecting, which is heavily versatile, high utility, and just, I feel like Alex is very good at what she does, and she has been, by all means, and she's accomplished a ton thus far in her career, but I just don't see her functioning really well with the other talent that we have to offer. They just offer a lot more at this present time.
It's no wonder how decorated Alex Morgan is as we take a look at her resume. 2-time World Cup champion, 2-time U.S. Soccer Female Athlete of the Year, a gold medalist, 5th all-time in goals at the international level with the U.S. But her omission, Darian, leaves room for and space for other players. And there are 5 other forwards on this list, including one Crystal Dunn, listed as a forward for Paris.
I love it. Yeah, I can understand. I completely agree. It's the versatility piece that I think is very key, but also who's in form leading into this tournament. It is so short, and to grow into a tournament and gain confidence, especially as somebody that's an attacker up top, where you have to put away those chances that are in front of you. You have to score. That is how your team is going to win games. You're not going to be brought on. It's too short of a turnaround between games, I think, to gain that in that amount of time. So for me, that's a big reason why she's not on this roster. I think if she were in full form and she was scoring goals for club and for country, she's had a lot of opportunities to, we might be talking about this roster completely differently. It might look different.
Oh, I totally
because
agree.
I think she brings a lot of leadership. She knows what she's getting into. She can lead this team. Just her presence there would be huge. But I just think it doesn't fit for how small this roster is and what they need to do in that short amount of time. But Crystal Dunn, Pop off, girls. I think we're going to see her all over the pitch. I wouldn't be surprised if we see her in the midfield, in the back line, up top, wherever that she's going to be on the field. I know she's going to do well because I think she fills in that leadership piece we've been talking a lot about that Alex Morgan would have brought had she been on this roster.
Versatility is a huge factor in a lot of the players on this list, Christine. But even when you look at this forward line, Crystal Dunn in the mix to play a number of positions, Jaden Shaw as well. How much do you think player versatility played a role into who made this 18-player roster?
Oh, I think it's been a massive factor going into this, especially with, you have to whittle down to what are your options. You want to be prepared for everything that could possibly go wrong, and you also want to be able to be really nimble. We know that Emma Hayes likes to be able to make adjustments during play, so like the tactical adjustments that she'll make on field. If you can slot a player, you can take, we noted earlier, like Crystal Dunn, listed as a forward, can play as a defender and has been deployed in that way, and we've already seen her try to do that, mid-game where, she slotted her from front to back line. You're not using the substitute. You also note that there aren't any defenders as alternates, and I think that's probably the reason. She tried to use specific resources how they could. She noted that, Mal can also be deployed as a 9. Kat can play as a 9 or a 10. We have a lot of wiggle room with who can be where. I think that is probably the secret sauce to this U.S. side.
Just looking at Shaw and how many goals she scored this last year for the U.S., I think is so important to go into. She's in form. She can play numerous positions. I think she has really good chemistry with those other creative players around her, whether it's Macario, Swanson-Smith, Rodman, Lavelle. I think she plays really well off of them. I don't even think we've seen the best from her yet. And this is a really big opportunity. And I think a huge nod from Emma Hayes that, hey, this youngster who's done so well, I don't know who I am, this young player who's done so well this last year, we have a lot of faith in you and you're going to be integral to our success moving forward well beyond the Olympics.
Like youth or not, she's inarguably one of the most creative players on pitch right now for the U.S. and that says a lot.
And the chemistry piece I think is a really, really massive.
Jaden Shaw, one of the 10 uncapped players that under Emma Hayes she has brought in, given time to, consistent call-ups and caps, and now making their Olympic debut. Let's move over to the midfielders because Emma Hayes has called in 5 midfielders: Corbin Albert, Sam Coffey, Lindsay Horan, Rose Lavelle, Katarina Macario, and then 2 alternates in NWSL rookies, Hal Hirschfeld and Croy Bethune, also on this roster. The inclusion of Corbin Albert is upsetting to a lot of people because earlier this year, Albert shared homophobic and transphobic content on social media, as well as liking posts wishing harm on teammates. Emma Hayes addressed this in her media availability, saying that Corbin making the team is on merit in terms of what she offers us in the midfield position. She also said Corbin has to learn. She's a young person who's understood fully the implications of her social media activity. Christine, what kind of precedent does this tell you that Emma Hayes is setting?
I think that she has set the precedent that she is willing to go against the status quo, to hear out the public, which is very necessary, and obviously you need to be receptive to that and all of the criticism. She's extremely aware of the situation. It's a big ask for her coming into this role early on. I think she also sort of isn't shielding Corbin from it. She said, she hears the boos, it's impacting her. She knows she has to do the work. And I think that we have to trust in the integrity of Emma Hayes and knowing that she has been a stand-up coach where she will hold you to what she thinks the standards should be. I think she was also acknowledged even before she arrived here to permanently take the role that she intends to uphold the culture as it exists. And I think that these are 2 really important things, and that this will be a long road of one, education and acceptance for her, but that there also isn't going to be this there won't be a slap on the wrist going forward. I think that they're addressing it and the expectation is it gets rectified.
Yeah, addressing it as just the second question after Emma Hayes released this roster in her media availability. Darian, the 2 alternates on this list are rookies, Croy Bethune and Hal Hirschfeld, both out of Washington Spirit. Shout out.
Great kid today.
What do you make of those 2 inclusions as part of the plus 18 going to Paris?
I think it's great. It's a big nod from Emma Hayes, in my opinion, saying you're the future. We want you to have this experience. I'm not thrusting you into the limelight of, yes, making the 18 and having to adapt really quickly to this culture, our style of play, how I coach, being with veterans on the U.S. Women's National Team. I think it's going to take a bit of a learning curve to get up to tempo and used to that type of competition and just this level of the game. But it's massive for them to just go in, be in training that often with Emma Hayes, have her eyes on them, get used to building chemistry with certain players that they don't get to play with because they're rookies in this league. They haven't even played against some of the players that play in Europe. So this is a really big opportunity for them, and I love it. I mean, shout out to Washington Spirit for their draft class this year, because my word, they have some talent, and I think they've developed them very well to get them to a national team position.
Croy Bethune and Hal Hirschfeld over Lily Johannes. Is that the right move?
I think it is, only because Emma stated that Lily just isn't ready to make the decision yet, and you don't want to saddle her with the responsibility of being cap-tied at this juncture. At 16, I don't know if I could pick what I wanted for lunch. So I think it's you're basically dictating your entire path forward. You know, it's a big ask. So I understand her tentativeness, but of course we all hope that she essentially makes up her mind and strays over to the red, white, and blue.
You think if Johannes decided on the U.S. that she would make this roster over Albert? Posing it to both of you.
I think
no, different roles.
It's different roles, and I think if we're leaning into versatility, as seems to be the overall edict in the selections, Corbin still gets the nod, but I feel like Lily, we will see her grow beyond the current potential. It will just take time.
Do you think she would have?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I do, actually.
Yeah, I like that shout. Lily Johannes offers something very different.
That being the
Johannes offers something so different.
She offers, we didn't get to see her do any defensive work, if we're honest, in the game.
A little bit.
I mean, she screened some passes, yeah, but I think Corbin Albert brings a lot defensively, which we've seen. She has an engine in that type of level of game. I don't know, we haven't seen that from Johannes, so I get it. There's a lot of unknowns, but if you're really investing into, wow, this player could be this girl for the team moving forward, she's only 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Emma's proven to make hard decisions.
Let's flip it, though. Let's say, hypothetically, Emma went to her and said, 100, you're in if you sign on the dotted line. Or maybe this conversation actually happened. Do you think that would have tipped the scales for Lily to say, like, okay, fine, I'll go the course?
No.
I think that's too much of a big ask for long term.
Yeah, she's 16. It's a big decision. Lily Johannes, she has dual citizenship between the Netherlands and the United States. So she has up for grabs which national team she wants to play for. For Emma Hayes, she also had to make some tough decisions across the back line, defender-wise. She brought in 6. Tierna Davidson, Emily Fox, Naomi Girma, Casey Kruger, Jenna Neiswanger, and Emily Sonnet. Darian, Casey Kruger, an alternate for Tokyo just a few years ago, and now she's on the full roster. What does Kruger add?
So much leadership. She adds the versatility Cupo has talked about. I think she can play anywhere beyond the back line, but I think something that gets overlooked, I said in our pod yesterday, her service into the box is top tier, in my opinion, equal to Jenna Neiswanger. I just don't think she gets the credit for it. It always goes underrated because she is a little bit more tucked back. I think they trust her with her speed, her athleticism, how well she defends 1v1, how clean she is on the ball to build out of the back. But if we're going to this spiritual 3-back, as our producer likes to call it, she's on the right side, in my opinion, that can help maintain the ball. Her and Crystal Dunn have good chemistry. Her and Trinity Rodman have great chemistry on the pitch. So I'm hyped for her. I think this is a long time deserved. She's always been a player that has never gotten her flowers, and I'm happy she's finally getting them.
Absolutely. Also her reliability, which is another thing that Emma had stressed, even with Corbin, which is like, can they perform match over match over match without worrying that they're too fragile or they can't handle it or otherwise.
She's got an engine.
2 great feet. Like she's...
Yeah, you can't even tell which foot is her dominant foot.
No alternatives in the back line for Emma Hayes on this roster. 2 midfielders, 1 forward, 1 goalkeeper. Is there someone you would have liked to see, Christine, be added as an alternate in the back line?
Honestly, no. My prediction, the back that she chose, I think she looked over my shoulder. It was my note.
She found your journal with all your credit.
I love me, like, Neiswanger and Kruger, like, the quality that they bring, again, like, they're able to aid in the attack. They string things together, but they're also rock solid. But, of course, like, no notes. It's perfect.
No notes. What about you? Any notes on the defensive line?
I would have loved to see Sam Stopp get a nod as an alternate. I think she's really great in that center back position. She's great service with her left. I think she showed how mature she is, how she can adapt really quickly to a high-level, high-competitive environment very seamlessly. We talked in length about that after she got got her first cap, and then started a game directly after. So I would have loved to see her get a nod, but I also understand you have a lot of players that can slot into defensive positions. That's why Emily Sonnet is there, in my opinion. Crystal Dunn is brought there. Casey Kruger, I think that's why she also got a nod to make this 18. So I understand why those alternate positions didn't go to a center back or an outside back position.
Okay, Sam Stubb for the fictitious. Right now, we're playing this out.
I love this.
As
game.
everything stands, right? As everything stands, who do you swap out of the alternates that she chose for Stubb?
Ooh,
I know.
Hirschfeld. I would say Hirschfeld.
I would too. Hirschfeld and Croy are on this roster because they play together at Washington, and they have that chemistry together, and the future is there. But if you had to, right, I think that Emma Hayes has a similar thinking in having these 6 defenders, knowing that they can play center back, outside back, a number of them, even slot into the 6. It's enough. You have enough depth and experience with this back line, including the goalkeepers that Emma Hayes has also
100%.
bringing to Paris. She's bringing 2 of them, Alyssa Nair and Casey Murphy. Jane Campbell, she will be named as the alternate, but Alyssa Nair has been the #1 keeper for the United States for a long time, but between Casey Murphy and Jane Campbell getting the start against the first friendly for the United States against South Korea, in which the U.S. won 4-0, Jane Campbell playing 90 minutes, is this the right decision to have Murphy on the full roster, Darian?
Yes, 100%. I think Casey has shown that she's very consistent in those moments where, as a goalkeeper, you don't get a lot of action at times, especially when you're on this national team. So for her to not make mistakes when, you know what, she's suddenly called upon on corners, on set pieces, where she comes up really big, she's very certain with the ball in her hands, is key. And I think that was the difference maybe between Campbell and Murphy, where Jane is really great at playing out with her feet. I think she's actually has that over Casey Murphy. But in those moments where you need a keeper to just be super clean in those key moments, I think Casey just got that, and that was ultimately the decision.
Just a bit more plugged in those off-ball moments, for sure.
Yeah,
I see that. Casey Murphy, also really tall. She gives good height in the box. It's someone that you can plug in for Alyssa Nair. Plenty more on the United States women's national team roster later on in this episode. Sandra Herrera is going to join us, give us her thoughts. But don't go anywhere. We have more Attacking Third coming up for you next. We're talking some front office changes in the NWSL. Welcome back to Attacking Third. Just halfway through the first ever season for Bay FC, General Manager Lucy Rushton has stepped down. Rushton was hired in June of 2023 ahead of the team's inaugural NWSL season, and she was a big part of the hiring of the club's first head coach, Albertine Montoya, and really helped build out the roster, including a world record transfer of Zambian forward Rachel Kudananji. Bay FC Technical Director Matt Potter will assume some of Rushton's roles as head of football and interim sporting director. In other California NWSL team news, San Diego Wave announced that the club has parted ways with head coach Casey Stoney. Despite this coming in the midst of a 7-game winless streak, the Wave sitting in 9th place in the standings. This comes as a shock, considering Stoney, the first manager in club history, has made the playoffs all 3 years of the club's existence, and she's won 2 trophies during that time. Plus, in January, Stoney signed a 4-year contract extension with San Diego. San Diego President Jill Ellis held a media availability after the announcement to address the dismissal of Casey Stoney. Take a listen.
Obviously, it certainly wasn't an easy decision. I don't think there's ever a perfect time to make a decision to let someone go. And, you know, I have the utmost respect for Casey and the contribution she's given to the club. And, you know, I think you read in our statement, we thank her profusely for the foundation that she's laid here at San Diego. I think results and statistics certainly give us information. And currently we're 17 points off of first place, and we are actually over halfway through the season. So we're an ambitious club. We want to compete both domestically and internationally. And right now, to qualify for the Champions League, there's 3 criteria: win the league, finish second in the league, or win the championship. Where we sit at the moment, we are limiting our opportunities. And it's never all about numbers. It's also, I think, how it looks, how it feels, and for sure how it performs. And in sport, we don't live in the past. It's how we perform in the moment. And in this moment, we felt, you know, and again, it was very hard. We needed an inflection point. So we made a very hard decision to change our head coach and begin a search for a new one.
A lot of success that Casey Stoney has already experienced in San Diego, but the oddest thing to me, Christine, is that she signed a 4-year contract extension just a few months ago. I mean, what concerns do you have about this?
It moved an entire family over here and usurped her whole. But I digress. I think it's an interesting soundbite to say in sport we don't live in the past when we do in fact hire people based on the past. So I don't know what exactly soured there, but I suspect it's something more than just a superfluous number of draws. I know that it hasn't been an easy go there. There's been less productivity, fewer scored goals. Player transfers that happen in the middle of the season, in the middle of the season. Some tactical changes that Casey Stoney was trying to upload, trying to figure out what the right rhythm is for them, how to play more directly when they should, when to rely on transition play, and it hadn't yet come to fruition. But if you would have asked me if this would have been the first firing of the season, Portland aside, I feel like that was an inside, it wouldn't have been her at all.
A bit surprising.
I completely agree. This was shocking to read, and honestly even more shocking to hear the reasons as to why, because I don't think San Diego hasn't performed poorly. That she's obviously trying to implement different types of tactics, a different style of play, where San Diego won a lot of the last previous seasons off of transitions. They traded away a lot of those players and get in more players that are a little bit more tactical, technical into the way Casey Stoney was trying to implement, which was breaking teams down with positive possession. She's quoted saying that numerous times. That takes a lot of time to build. That's a lot of chemistry against different opponents that ask a lot of questions of your team. It's really tough. So yes, 7 winless streak. I think other teams have far worse records.
Of course.
That are maintaining their coaches.
If we look at it reasonably, how many teams have actually won seasons with a wild number of draws?
Yeah, it happens.
She's already won a trophy this year, winning the Challenge Cup.
She has. But in my opinion, it sucks as well because Casey Stoney is such an advocate for the players. She has always been so outspoken about what's wrong, what needs changing, whether it's the schedule, whether it's where their training facilities are, how they're traveling. She goes on and advocates for the team and for the players before anybody else. And I don't know if maybe that's something that could be a factor in this. I have no idea, but she's so outspoken, and that's something I've always loved about her because very few coaches stick up for players the way that she does. And it's a shame to see her leave San Diego, but I hope we see her somewhere else in the NWSL or just in women's soccer, whether she goes back to England or not, because I think she's massive for whatever team she's going to be a part of on the player side specifically.
A lot of players at San Diego have voiced in the past to me on coaches' calls and speaking with them before games about how much they respect Stoney and how much they like her and listen to her, and she can really rally the group together. This announcement does come just a few weeks after San Diego announced that Cami Ashton was the newest general manager of the club, but Jill Ellis making it very clear that this decision to part ways with Casey Stoney is separate and independent of Cami Ashton heading into the GM role. She was not part of those talks, but they have announced that Paul Buckle will take over as interim head coach in San Diego. They have more action this weekend as they take on the Chicago Red Stars. Another California team that has some changes in their front office, Bay FC GM Lucy Rushton announced that she is leaving the club, and this is in their first season, just halfway through their first season ever, Darian. But Rushton, she laid a foundation at this club, and what kind of foundation did she lay for Bay?
This was going to be an international superstar. We got big checks, we got big money. Let's bring him in. Signed Albertine Montoya, who is just such an enjoyable coach to watch on the sidelines, to speak to. You can tell his players respect him and love him. She did a lot of work for Bay FC, a lot of positive work, and I think her record just goes to show that she was leading the team in the correct way. I'm not quite sure. It seems like she's leaving on her own accord. We obviously never know these things, but I think she did really amazing things by laying the foundation for Bay with these internationals, with the players that they brought in from the expansion draft and who they've drafted, has been really key to this team. And you can see even at this point in the season, they're starting to see the real identity of what Bay has been working towards since the beginning. And it's a shame she's not going to be there, but I hope we see her involved in women's soccer in some way in the future.
Lucy Rushton took to social media saying that 7 months to build a team from scratch and to bring a vision to life, 6 months of seeing this incredible team form, bond, and develop and grow together. And she wishes Bae all the best as she says goodbye just halfway through the season. A lot of changes still to come. We'll keep you updated on any other moves that happened across the NWSL. Don't go anywhere, though. Plenty more of attacking third. Sandra Herrera joins us next to talk Emma Hayes and the United States women's national team roster.
It's not easy making a decision that there's only 16 outfield players and 2 goalkeepers on a roster of 18. So it was a tough decision, of course, especially considering Alex's history and record with this team. But I felt that, I wanted to go in another direction and selected other players.
After Alex Morgan was left off the 18-player Olympic roster for the United States women's national team, she took to social media saying, "Today, I'm disappointed about not having the opportunity to represent our country on the Olympic stage. This will always be a tournament that is close to my heart, and I take immense pride anytime I put on the crest. In less than a month, I look forward to supporting this team and cheering them on alongside the rest of our country." A big way to show her maturity and veteran ability without being on this roster. Former U.S. men's national team forward and U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer Landon Donovan joined Golazo Network on Thursday and was asked about Morgan's omission, referencing his own experience in 2014 being left off the World Cup roster. Take a listen.
Yeah, I'm devastated for Alex. Having played through the years parallel as she's been playing and watching her career, it's a horrible moment. And I don't wish it on anybody. It is not enjoyable to have to deal with that. It's the unfortunate part of this business that happens to all of us at some point. But I'm mostly just, I sympathize with Alex, and I hope it doesn't define the rest of her season, and that she can make peace with it at some point. Certainly not going to be soon, because these things are difficult to deal with, but my heart goes out to her.
For more on the United States women's national team roster, we are so pleased to welcome in good friend of the show, Sandra Herrera, to chat more about this. Sandra, it was a really big decision for Emma Hayes to omit Alex Morgan from this roster, but what does it tell you about the way that Hayes wants to run this team?
She wants to get on the ground running. I think everything that she sort of has spoken about since her arrival stateside is kind of already alluded to that. And I think this final Olympic roster is really just the actual landing point. I think there's been hints along the way, but sometimes you don't really know until you know. And I think we all know now that the Emma Hayes era is actually truly in effect. Look, that I'm sure wasn't an easy call to make, but that's also part of why U.S. Soccer hired Emma Hayes, to kind of put her in this position. They wanted to have someone who would make those difficult calls and have those difficult conversations. And it's evident, sure, we can go on about the soccer reasons, right? Why Alex Morgan isn't going to the Olympics. This has not been a 2024 that has been particularly productive for her, despite having some good moments during that Gold Cup in February. But navigating an injury, not pulling up for club in front of goal. These are all factors that led to this moment. And maybe a different coach in a different era might bring an Alex Morgan caliber type of player for marquee reasons. But in this new era, it looks and feels very, very different. So despite those soccer reasons, we have to talk about it because it is so massive, because of the player and whom Alex Morgan is. So the fact that we're here saying, like, yes, is there logic behind not bringing Alex Morgan? Of course. But that also means that there's a bit of a turning of a page here, the changing of the guard, as we've all been talking about. And because of that, we're all speaking about it in that aspect. That Alex Morgan is someone in a very specific time in her career. She's 34. As far as a cycle, the next one is going to be 4 years away for a World Cup and an Olympics back to back. This was maybe going to possibly be a swan song for her, but this is not going to be the case moving forward. So, in talking about this throughout the week, it's almost, I think, as if a lot of folks in the media or even, fans who find themselves as casual fans of this team online and in other spaces, kind of acknowledging that this is while this may be the right call, that it's still a tough one to see, because again, this is going to be the first major international tournament that Morgan hasn't been a part of since 2008.
Sandra, in our provisional rosters that we all made, you had Morgan on your list and Shaw out. How do you think it is that Shaw kind of made herself so important to be on this 18 and make this roster for Emma Hayes? What qualities does she bring that made her such a staple on this team?
Okay, homie, don't set me up now. Okay, I had Shaw in, but I just bumped her to a midfield position, and I kept Morgan as part of that forward core. Again, a lot of the things that we've heard out of these training camps, even when Twyla Kilgore was the face of it as interim, now with Emma Hayes officially on the sidelines, that versatility is key for so many of the players that did make this 18-player roster. You've got to be able to kind of flow in and out of positions depending on how the coaching staff wants to plan and game plan for these Olympic Games moving forward, especially in this type of tournament where these games kind of come in quick succession. We hear all the time about how the Olympics are sometimes a little bit harder than maybe running a gauntlet of a World Cup just because of the time constraint and the fewer teams in competition. So versatility is key. So I didn't have her completely out. I just thought maybe Shaw's versatility, her emerging profile, maybe they'll have her as a midfielder versus a forward, and that would maybe perhaps have a little spot for Alex Morgan in that forward core, but out completely for Morgan by Emma Hayes.
Sandra, in the same vein, speaking of versatility, we saw the selection of Corbin Albert, which obviously Emma addressed yesterday. What do you make of that? I know that's a big question. And how do you see this sort of playing out? I know obviously she has the technical capability, but coming up against odds of knowing that she is impacted by the negative reactions, and rightfully so, of the fan base.
Yeah, she's been held in the court of public opinion for months now, and rightfully so. I mean, this could be said of anyone who maybe finds themselves in a little bit of a public spotlight. Actions have consequences, and the fact of the matter is, Corbin Albert shared, reposted across her own personal social media accounts, very anti-homophobic, anti and transphobic sentiment across her social media pages. And these aren't just like things you can just sort of sweep away and brush under the rug. And I think that's why a lot of the public opinion right now is rightfully outraged at that. And so if it gets to a point where at one moment we had Alex Morgan as a co-captain alongside Lindsey Horan as team captain, addressing it in front of media in a press conference ahead of She Believes, it's quite serious. And they have said that they want to take care of those things internally. And Emma Hayes, speaking about it on the roster release press conference, kind of reiterating at one point, saying that she wasn't going to reveal all the details of conversations that she's had with her player, that's mainly between her and Corbin. They are all kind of adamant in the messaging that these conversations are ongoing, this work is being done, and it's happening behind the scenes. But when you have harm like that's done so out in the open and so publicly, I think fans who find themselves vested in this team want to see proof of that work. And the truth is, now this player is going to the Olympics. And while she hasn't addressed any media or anything like that, I don't know how much longer that's going to be the case when you crack an Olympic roster and going to find yourself going to Paris. This player will be asked about that supposed work that's being done, if there's been any improvement or conversations. And I think when folks want to just keep it about soccer, I think it's also important to note the fact that Emma Hayes did mention the fact that her performance has declined, and yet she's still going on this Olympic roster. So I thought that was a particularly interesting note coming out of this press conference, that while she had a very lengthy quote about Corbin Albert's inclusion, within that quote, it also included the fact that she has struggled on the pitch in light of all of this coming into headlines. So I think with that being said, some folks say, well, why not take a player that isn't struggling on the pitch at this moment? A lot of folks excited for Croy Bethune being on this roster as an alternate, but maybe folks wondering why not bump her higher, or Lily Johannes, who was not yet ready to make a decision on a national team appearance yet. Or, I had Ashley Sanchez for a long time in a lot of my mock rosters. I thought she's put together a very good NWSL season through 14 games with North Carolina Courage. And I think Corbin Albert's ability to run an Olympic-style type of gauntlet, we saw that during the Gold Cup. She played a lot of games and carried a lot of minutes, and maybe that is one of those factors that Emma Hayes kind of chose, for this player to make the roster. Because when I look at, numbers between her appearances for PSG, friendlies for the U.S. Women, CONCACAF Gold Cup. We're talking about a player that created 10 chances between all of those things. And you've got someone like an Ashley Sanchez who's got 25 chances right now for North Carolina Courage, and also has 3 assists and 2 goals as well. So folks are going to look at those things. They're going to look at that kind of data and then maybe listen to what Emma Hayes says and say, hey, things that doesn't really make a lot of whole sense here. But look, this is the player that they chose to be part of that midfield core. And I think when it comes to what we're going to see through the Olympics, there's that wait and see approach because it's still a month away. And when we'll see how that happens. But I think there's a lot that's going to be continued to be discussed about this, especially when a player in Corbin Albert, the one who did do these actions, posted an apology, but it's gone. It's gone with the wind of the internet. It was an expired story. So that apology that she stated isn't even no longer in existence. So I think it's going to be continued to be spoken about until folks want to see what that work is like.
Sandra, thank you so much. Really eloquently said and broke it down for us. I know that you were part of that media availability, and we did get your thoughts on Wednesday's podcast episode on YouTube of Attacking Third. So thank you. It is always great to hear from you about this.
Appreciate it. Have a good show, guys.
Thanks, Sandra. Don't go anywhere. We've got plenty more show of Attacking Third. Coming up next, Darian. She's going to break down Kansas City Current and what we've seen from their attack. Hey everyone, welcome back to Attacking Third, brought to you by PNC Bank. Brilliantly boring since 1865. This is our Brilliantly Boring segment, but it is anything but boring. We get to showcase some brilliant moments of the game. Well, really Darian does, and she gets to take us through everything that's happening in the NWSL. And this week our focus is on the Kansas City Current. Undefeated through Matchday 14 at the top of the standings, but really it's their goal total that has been the biggest difference maker this season under Vlatko Andonovski, more than doubling their goal total from all of 2023, just halfway through the season, and doing it with 17 different goal scorers throughout the club. It is evident that there's a lot of versatility, and it's been proven that it's hard to stop Kansas City, Darian. They are undefeated so far in the season. Why?
They have the ability to score goals in numerous amounts of ways, and I'm just going to show you from their last game. Portland Thorns were unable to stop their super diverse attack. They can get you on the counter, they can get you in their build-up, and their relentless pressure. Here, Kansas City in a build-up, this ball goes wide to Michelle Cooper. She's able to bring it down, and just look at this combination between Levanta, Debinha, and Cooper. This ball goes wide to Debinha, and then Cooper makes this inside-out run, opts to get end line, and then just take a look at the runs in the box. You have Bia and Chawinga. Chawinga making that near post run. It frees up Bia. She has this vast amount of space because Payne goes with Chawinga. She has a wide open shot, hits Shelby Hogan right in the middle of the net, but really good opportunity. Kansas City just warming up at this point. And then here's where Kansas City are able to press. Now here, take a look at Debinha. Klingenberg has nowhere to go. Sophia Smith is her only option. She has 4 defenders around her. Tries to pull the ball back. Debinha picks it off, and boom, it's off to the races. Good little combination play. And again, this great ball right across the 18. Nobody's there because it was so quick even for the Kansas City players to get in the right positions. But again, here's where Kansas City start to turn the tide. They break the entire front line of Portland's press, and it's off. This ball goes wide, and take a look at Payne. She leaves such a huge gap between herself and Portland's back line. This is where Kansas City is able to thrive, when they have this giant gap of space because they have so much versatility and speed up top. Ball goes into Chewinga. Great little combination play. Back to Debinha. Back to Chewinga. And this time, no one's crashing the goal, but another good chance. And then this next clip is where the goals start coming in, because Kansas City this time start to put them on frame and get in the box. Labonta puts this ball over. Good combination play. And just keep your eye on Labonta as this ball goes wide. With DiBernardo out, she's able to drift into a bit of a higher position than we typically see Labonta. Cooper looks to go 1v1 combine. It goes back to her, but look at Labonta's run. She goes into the center of the goal. Chewinga this time pops out to the far post. She resurfaces it. Labonta gets a little bit of a touch off of the back of her head, and her first goal of 2 on this night, her first brace in her career. Here, ball goes wide. Bia chases it down. Portland not able to do much with it. Bia picks it up, and Kansas City just start crashing the box. Look at how many Portland Thorns defenders opt to try to help defend. Labonta here at the top of the box. Just keep your eye on her, because this is a screamer. How many times do Kansas City get the opportunity to serve it? Numerous times. This ball is deflected, and who else steps up? The captain for Kansas City through all of this traffic between her own teammates and Portland. Upper 90 banger. Goal of the week, in my opinion. Labonta's first brace in her career, the captain. Good to see that for Lowe. And then last but not least, transition. Bia posting up, dragging the center back out of position. Keep your eye on Chewinga, because she's in this little pocket, and once she gets going, you cannot stop her. Pushes Payne off. She has Debinha to her left, wide open. She can slot to, but she's a forward. She's going to take this 1v1 go herself, puts it near post for Kansas City's fourth and final goal. We also didn't get to see Balasagar's goal off of a corner, but this just goes to show how diverse Kansas City's attack is and how they're able to score goals, and I think are pretty unstoppable, ladies.
Kansas City has absolutely been unstoppable. That 4-1 win, Darian, over Portland Thorns was the Kansas City's 5th match with at least 4 goals this season. Absolutely unstoppable in the attack. They take on Houston Dash this weekend. Houston is coming off a 0-0 draw versus San Diego last weekend. For Houston, their 3rd straight shutout at home. However, it's also their 3rd straight scoreless game. Houston struggling in the attack. What changes do you need to see offensively from the Dash?
I feel like the Dash have had struggles in every aspect this season. In the beginning, it was defensively, where they didn't really have a back line. Now it's struggling to score. They have had a bad go. I don't know what they would have to do at this point to try to overcome Kansas City. They will absolutely
Try to outscore them?
Yeah.
That's the only tactic we've seen.
But they're not scoring goals either, so it's like, I feel like they're running into just another loss, unfortunately, for Houston. I don't see daylight for this matchup.
What's missing for me in Houston's attack is their inability to combine with Ordonez, Alozie, Bachman. They all kind of bring different qualities, but none of them have meshed together well enough where they're scoring enough. They're not scoring in the times they need to win games. So if they can combine with those 3, because they bring such different things, Alozie to stretch, Ordonez to play in the pocket, Bachman to play off of Ordonez, and pull teams out that way, maybe they can get a chance to score some more goals, but they play so predictable in games. You see there's a shock, the element of surprise for the first 10, 15 minutes, and then after that it's the same play over and over again until they maybe make a sub really late in the game. I hope we see maybe a little bit more from Houston, because I think that against Kansas City's 3-back, this may be the opportunity to do it. But
they do
we'll
have a
see.
leaky defense, so if they have a chance to just get those balls right into the final third, I mean,
Houston traveling to CPKC Stadium to take on the Current Friday night. So I want to know quickly, prediction, goal fest? Kansas City stays undefeated?
It's always a goal fest at CPKC. What kind of question is that?
Vlaco finally fields the remaining 5 players who haven't scored.
Yeah, exactly.
And they do like a full...
Right? That would actually be insane. I'll say 3-1.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Christine?
5-1.
5-1. Any new goal scorers? Maybe. You never know.
At least one, you know? Why not?
I'm going to go 2-1. A little bit more narrow.
That's so conservative.
Less goals. I know. We'll have fun.
Kansas City, remember, Vlaco has the problem of keeping them from scoring goals.
This is true. They just run and they go and they go and they go.
He says
We'll
you don't
see.
have to.
Kansas City, they go against Houston Friday night. Plenty more NWSL action to come. We're previewing it all next. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Attacking Third. Last week, we hit 1 million fans at games, and now we've hit 7.2 million total game viewers to date in the NWSL. And it's only halfway through the season, and we have almost doubled the total from 2023. Well, fans, get ready. This weekend, you can turn on your televisions and watch NWSL all weekend long. It starts Friday night, Kansas City Current hosting the Houston Dash, 8 p.m. on Amazon Prime. And then later, Friday night, San Diego Wave against the Chicago Red Stars. A couple matches on Saturday. Racing Louisville against Bay FC, Washington Spirit taking on the North Carolina Courage, and Utah Royals hosting Portland Thorns. Sunday, Gotham FC will take on Seattle Reign, a rematch of the 2023 NWSL Championship. And the big one, Sunday, Angel City taking on Orlando Pride, with coverage beginning at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time on the Golazo Network. Orlando Pride will hope to keep their unbeaten streak alive. They've only lost one of their 5 all-time NWSL meetings against Angel City. And Angel City, Darian, they're coming off a 1-0 loss to Bay and just 1 win in their last 7 matches. What do you expect from this game?
Goals by Orlando, sadly. Maybe a couple by Angel City. I think Angel City's looked a lot better recently. They've had a lot more in the attack. I think a lot of that has to do with Kristen Press being back in training. The standard is lifted. It's much more competitive. We're seeing Sid LaRue get in front of the goal, which she's always going to put them away. Alyssa Thompson looks like she's enjoying the game a little bit more. I think we're seeing things come together. It's just not a full 90 performance from Angel City, especially in their own box defending. It needs to be a bit better, which is such a tough position to go into when you're playing against Orlando Pride with Barbara Banda and Marta and all the goal scorers that they have. I expect it to be a fun game to watch. I don't know if I would want to be on the Angel City defensive end going against Orlando's attack, but it's going to be a fun game.
Obviously, Chicago Red Stars, San Diego Wave.
Nice.
Game this weekend. We're going to see a San Diego Wave side that is without Casey Stoney and have a lot to prove. We have Chicago Red Stars, Lauren Donaldson side that we know loves to play more defensively, but they have no problem scoring goals either. I think that Chicago should really try to take this opportunity to strike while the iron's hot, quite frankly. I think it'll be a close game because I just think that San Diego Wave tend to neutralize things defensively. So
we'll see. Chicago, San Diego, just one of many across the NWSL weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.